Enlightenment by Joe, Julian, and Owen. Let's start off with the beginning, the Crusades. The Crusades were a series of wars fought between the Christians and the Muslims over the Holy Land, also known as Jerusalem. Now, it happened to be 4 times this happened. There were more than just 4 Crusades, but the main ones were the first 4. After the Crusades, this sparked a sense of nationalism and a sense of adventure during them. Although Europe predominantly lost the Crusades, there were some benefits that it had reached. Muslims had an extensive knowledge of the outside world, and when Europe found out, they were all like, "What?" It was a huge surprise. This new knowledge that the Europeans had acquired sparked the Renaissance. So things were going pretty good in the Renaissance. Even the Mona Lisa was rediscovered. But that's not the only thing that happened, and that kind of led to the age of exploration. And some people had found glorious trade routes to Asia from Europe. However, most Europeans did not want Italy included in this trade route with Asia. And Italy was kind of pushed out of this newly found trade routes. The Europeans just did not want Italy to be the middle man. So, while the Europeans explored, they also found the Americas, but right now that's not entirely important. But then people started to wonder, I mean, why do we have to follow these monarchies, the church, everyone? And so many questions popped up, which eventually led to the scientific revolution, because of the questioning of the church. And when questioning happened, it led to a whole bunch of things, such as the geocentric theory, or the fact that the Earth is the center of the universe, and everything else revolves around it, was questioned, mainly by Copernicus. Along with that, people also started to question, was the Earth really flat? Which is what the church taught them for quite a while. So as I mentioned before, a guy named Copernicus comes along and starts questioning the geocentric theory, but the church hasn't dealt with. And then comes along Galileo, who believes that Copernicus was right, and he liked that idea. However, the church also dealt with him eventually, making him confess that everything that Copernicus had taught about the heliocentric theory, which is that the sun is the center of the universe and everything else revolves around that. He was summoned to court and said publicly that everything that Copernicus had researched and everything that Galileo had previously said was wrong. So with people questioning the church, the monarchy, and basically anything, this sparked a whole new thing called the Enlightenment. Now there are 2 main views on government. One that was presented by a man named Thomas Hobbes, and one by a man named John Locke. Hobbes believed that government was a necessity, and that people must hand over their rights to a strong ruler, and in exchange they gain law and order. He called this agreement the social contract. John Locke, on the other hand, believed that people should govern themselves, and were born with 3 natural rights: life, liberty, and property. Around this time, Paris was the place to be if you were a philosopher/philosophy, one of which was Voltaire. Voltaire was another very famous philosopher that fought against government, clergy, and aristocracy, usually through satire. That made people very angry. But he always fought for his 3 rules: freedom, tolerance, and reason. Then there was a philosopher named Montesquieu, who believed in separation of powers. The king held executive power, the members of parliament held legislative power, and the judges of English courts held judicial power. He later said power should be a check to power, which would later be called checks and balances. Then there was Rousseau, who believed that man was born free, but was brought down by civilization. Both Montesquieu and Rousseau believed firmly that fair and just laws should govern society. Mary Wollstonecraft believed that men's education and women's education should be the same, and that all people should be equal, no matter what. Some monarchs ruled by Enlightenment ideas to rule and justify and respect the rights of subjects, which people really liked. Around this time, a new art form had sprung about. Up until now, there had been a type of art style called Baroque. Baroque showed an art style of grand and ornate, but this new art form called Neoclassical showed simple and elegant. The ruler most admired by the philosophers was Catherine II, also known as Catherine the Great. She made many changes to the Russian government, including allowing religious toleration and the abolishment of torture and capital punishment. However, after a revolt from the serfs, she gave absolute power to nobles over the serfs. Meanwhile, Britain faced a challenge from its North American colonies. Inspired by Enlightenment ideas, colonial leaders decided to do the unthinkable, and broke away from the ruling country and founded an independent republic.